All right, well, folks, welcome back to Code It Live. I'm your host for the day, Sam, and I have my very good friend, Dan, here with me. How are you doing, Dan?
Oh, good. It's been way too long.
Yeah, it has. Well, I have not been as consistent as we try to be because it's summertime, with streaming. We've been traveling a little bit. We've got more travels coming up. So, what do you do with kids out of school? This is the time to travel a little bit. So, well, we normally do .NET MAUI stuff on this, and Dan's been busy with a lot of different things. And I think, Dan, you wanted to talk a little bit about authentication with .NET MAUI.
Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about auth today. It's something that I know nobody ever adds to their application. Um, did you want to know
Just
who your user was? But
yeah, and
um,
it probably is best left to the professionals if you're doing it.
yeah, there is a lot about that is definitely best left to professionals. But
Yeah,
there's a lot that goes into authentication. Obviously, there are a lot of different solutions out there. Um, you know, uh, we have our good friends at Okta, of course, that have a great product for authentication. Microsoft, of course, has Azure Active Directory. They've got the Azure Active Directory B2C, which is a very interesting product. There are some cool things that you can do with that. I know the state of Arizona for what is their
the
they
driver's
call it,
license.
they call it like their Department of Transportation.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those weird things in the U.S. I've noticed is like some states call it like the Department of Motor Vehicles, some is like the Department of Transportation, whatever. But they're kind of DOT that like where you go to get your driver's license or update your registration on your car or whatever. Their whole portal actually runs on Azure Active Directory B2C.
Interesting.
Um, in fact, Sam and I, we were talking, about some of the diving that I've been doing, and I've gone down to Roatan a few times, and just the immigration process actually going into Honduras. Honduras is, what do you call it? Like their immigration department, basically. They have a website portal that you have to go to, and you have to say, I'm coming from here and I'm going to there, and I'm vaccinated or I've taken a COVID test or whatever. And that whole portal is actually authenticated through Azure Active Directory B2C as well.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of different cases for it, but there's a lot I personally don't like about it. When you're integrating this into a mobile app, you have to get the client ID, the client secret into your mobile app. So you're setting up a lot of things in your mobile
Yeah.
application for it. You have this very kind of tightly coupled authentication scheme with Azure Active Directory
Yeah.
B2C in your app. So for mobile, I like to try to avoid it these days because there are certain pitfalls. And luckily, for better or worse, we have the Essentials library from the Xamarin, now the .NET MAUI team. And in .NET MAUI, I actually like it. I know, Sam, I love interfaces.
Mm-hmm.
and
So
uh,
you,
and
you
we
know,
have that. We have that first class in MAUI.
yeah. So I was gonna say, like, before we
Yeah.
dive into authentication, let me pull up your desktop here. Could you like
Yeah.
step back for a second? Um, Tell us where or how you see the state of .NET MAUI right now. Are you happy with interfaces? Are you happy with essentials and APIs? Are you happy with tooling? Framework pieces? Because I know you
Uh-huh.
and you do a lot with Prism, maintaining
Uh-huh.
that open source library. So what's your take right now with the state of .NET MAUI?
um, my take is would contain language that's probably not appropriate for this stream.
Well, I mean,
uh,
anything
uh,
is growing pains, right?
yeah. What one of the problems that I've actually come across. So I'll just kind of code it up here. Let me. let me increase the
Yeah, just
size.
bump up the fonts a little bit.
So I'll just do like a little code sample. So let's say that we have our window, right? Now this is just kind of just for code that we can work with. This is obviously not something you would actually have. But let's say that, we get our window from our application and we want to reset the content. And since we're talking about authentication today, the authentication sample is a great example of kind of where you might do what I'm about to show. So the idea here is, and this is kind of a pattern that I always advocate, is when you go into your application, that application should have like a splash page. And when I say a splash page, I don't mean like the native splash page that's just kind of like a static image. It's more of a dynamic. It's that MAUI page or that Xamarin Forms page where you have like an activity indicator. You might update a label or something. This is where maybe you need to download some resources. You want to check the state of your user's authentication. Are they already authenticated? We can go into the application. Do we need to update that token? Whatever our process may be. And so you have that initial page that you've gone to, and now let's say that the user isn't authenticated, right? So what I might need to do is I might need to take that window and go new login page, right? And now they've authenticated, and now I'm going to say, window.page equals new main page, right? And so this is something that is, realistic for us to do in our application. And the problem that we run into in MAUI right now, as of SR2, is that this actually will not work on all platforms. So Android, for example, just goes, yeah, I don't care. I'm going to show the last page that was showing. I'm not going to acknowledge that you changed the page on the window. And I think that kind of says a lot about the state of MAUI right now. There's a really great framework, but it's got a long way to go before it's really, truly usable.
So you mentioned the authentication sample. Like, could you pull up the .NET MAUI docs site? Like, what do they have for authentication right now?
Mm-hmm. Give me just 1 second to get off of something here. Okay, so let's bring that over, and we'll say docs MAUI authentication. So, the first thing that comes up, Microsoft is really good at SEO. So, everyone thought, oh man, you have MAUI, I'm going to get people on the beach and blah, blah, blah. But no, actually, we do get their docs pretty easily. And just for fun, let's just say MAUI authentication. So I don't even have to put docs, and I'm still going to get those docs as the #1 result. So all those fears, by the way, that people have had, and I do hear it a lot. I don't know about you, but I've heard it a lot. Like, people afraid they're not going to be able to find what they need. So we have the web authenticator that comes from Essentials.
Mm-hmm.
This is in Xamarin Essentials today. It's in MAUI Essentials if you're using MAUI. And this is what I actually really kind of like, because you're not tied to a specific authentication mechanism, and you get a little bit finer control over how to handle the security around that token that comes back. They're not doing everything for you. This is, give me a URL to go to. We're going to go display the login, and then, you will give you back a token. So this is, I think, actually really, really nice.
Dan, before you go on, I think your
Shoot.
camera froze for a second, or maybe can you?
Did it freeze again?
Yeah, I mean, I hear you just fine. Just the camera part, maybe.
What the heck, man? Let's see if I.
Yeah, see if you can turn it off and then on again, just from your settings.
Let's see here. How about now?
There you go.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know, because I don't even have that window
That's
visible
fine. Yeah,
to
I'm
me
looking
as
at
I'm
it.
going here. Anyway, so we have these great docs, and they do kind of break out what we need to do on Android, iOS, Mac. And there's a little bit of setup on each of these platforms that we need to do. It's not a whole heck of a lot. We need to just add this protocol here.
What is this thing meant
Yep.
to do? Like you give it a
Mm-hmm.
URL, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, whatever, it goes
Yep.
and talks to it, tries to get the token out, or what is it trying to do?
So we're actually not going to go directly to that OAuth provider.
Okay.
We will get a token back from them, obviously, but what we really want to do is we want to go to our own API. And that's one of those things. It's one of the reasons why I don't care for, for the Microsoft Azure Active Directory B2C. There's still some wire up we need to do. It's much easier if I can just say, go to this authentication endpoint with my API, and then now I'm generating JWT that's good for me to use with that API, and I'm letting that API kind of figure out everything that it needs to do. So the real kind of key takeaway here is, when we redirect back to the app, we are going to have a custom scheme. And what I mean by that, if I click in here,
What is the scheme?
if I click in here, we can kind of see in the URL, we have HTTPS, and that's the scheme of the URL. Okay. Is that HTTPS. And so when we have this callback scheme, my app, all that's saying is that instead of seeing HTTPS, it's going to be my app, a colon whack whack, and then whatever comes after that. And so we're registering that in our application, so that way the native OS, whether it's Android, iOS, Mac, Windows, they know when you see that URL that comes back with this scheme, you need to open up our app and you need to call into our app.
Yeah.
That hopefully makes sense a little bit.
Yeah.
Perfect. There are also some additional things in here that are kind of nice. So you have the web authenticator. Obviously, this kind of gives us an example of like, okay, I'm going to call, my API, and I have, this is the auth endpoint. So, maybe I have, mobile auth is the endpoint, and then I have Microsoft is the OAuth provider. Okay. So I want to authenticate with Microsoft is what I'm telling my API. And then I'm passing it in that scheme, the my app scheme. So that way it's now the web authenticator is now going to listen for those results coming back at my app. But let's see, where is it? Here it is. Okay. So if we go down far enough, there is
Can you
a
bump
little
up the fonts here as well, please?
Yeah, sure, I can.
On in your browser.
Oh, that did not work the way I was hoping it would. Now I cannot get out of it. Okay.
Yeah, just that. Zoom. There we go.
There we go. So I was trying to do, and I got the wrong shortcut. This is what happens when you toggle back and forth between Mac and PC.
When Mac and Windows, yeah. I did that a lot.
In any case, so one of the nice things as well is the web authenticator has a very good understanding of how to work with Apple sign-in as well. The difference is we're not actually going to use the web authenticator. We're going to use the Apple sign-in authenticator, which is coming from Essentials as well. So it allows us to very easily use that native API. So we don't have to necessarily launch like the web UI for someone to go log in. It's going to use those native APIs within iOS to give us the Apple sign-in, which is quite nice. And it's still going to use our API. So, when we go out to our API, it's able to handle all of that. But this is just, some little nice things that we can kind of do to improve our to improve like just the experience that people get here with our app. And they give us, kind of an example of, how to check that, right? So if our scheme is Apple, let's make sure that we're actually running on iOS and that we have a version that supports it. So you get kind of these, you get the ability to kind of go back and forth. I do love in the docs, by the way, I don't know if you noticed this. So for Apple, the docs are using the static API, and then for Web Authenticator, they call into the default instance and then use the Authenticate. I love the consistency for Microsoft. Yeah. So anyway, so this is going to come back. We're going to have our auth token. We're going to be able to get claims. Anything that you would expect is going to be able to be populated here.
Can I pause you for a second?
Shoot.
For me and for everyone watching, can you break these things down a little bit? What is a token and what is a claim?
Okay. So the token is, it's the password, right? So, I just, in the back of my mind, I'm hearing, from the movies, what is the password? But that's really what it is, right? It's you being able to say, like, here's.
Can you get in? Like, are you who you are?
Yeah, exactly. Do you know the right phrase or the right, thing to get access? Okay. A claim is something like your name or your email, maybe a role that user is in. Are they an admin user, for instance? So that's kind of like the difference between like the token versus the claims.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're going to be able to get access to all that, though. And this is just all Authenticator. This is nothing I've done. This is all from, the Microsoft team. The problem that I actually found out very quickly was that to really integrate with this takes a lot more work out of the box than what it should. And since I do build a lot of apps, obviously I do a lot of demo apps like this. I do a lot of client apps. I wanted something that would be very easy to get off, the ground and get up and running with it. The other thing is, notice I do have a few tabs open. So just to kind of make this work, right, it actually took, I had to go into Azure, set up my web app. I had to go into Azure again and set up a client app that I could use for Microsoft authentication. I had to go into Google API and set up client ID for OAuth. And then I also had to go into Apple, and Apple just, they, God love them, they love to be difficult. And so, the first thing is you have to set up a app ID that is going to enable the entitlement for sign in with Apple. And then after you do that, you actually have to click the little drop down, which a lot of people don't even realize there is a drop down. But you click the little drop down and you select service ID, and then you have to go and create a service ID that's attached to the app ID that you just created that also has sign in with Apple, and you have to configure the service ID, and you have to tell that what the authorized domains are, and what the authorized callbacks are, and then you also have to the real fun one is everyone loves localhost for testing. Apple does not support localhost. So
you have to have a URL or a service endpoint
yep,
callback.
yep,
Yeah. So what Dan is referring to here is like if you are doing any iOS development, native or with .NET MAUI, there are things you just need to know. First is all of your permissions live in like an info type plist file, which are all the declarations from the user. But then what Dan is showing off here, these are the extra set of elevated permissions for using Apple services, which go in your entitlements list. And I have had fun with this because for your app to work with this, you have to have a provisioning profile that matches and has the same entitlements. And then you have to go into the Apple developer site and download the corresponding profile so you can start deploying your apps to devices. So that makes it fun.
Yeah. And you have to have an auth key that is, also attached for sign in with Apple with that SID and app ID. So there's definitely some setup, and it's poorly documented everywhere I could find. And so, long story short is I decided to do something about that. And so this is a bit of reading, and I'm not going to read it to you now, but if you go to the Avanti Point GitHub, you'll find it. It's in the pinned repos. You find the mobile auth lib, and
hold on for a second. Let me put that in. So you got GitHub.com, and then Avanti Point, and then you got mobile auth
dash lib.
All right, there you go. So, folks in the chat room, you have the URL to follow along. Okay.
Yep.
So, as one does, like the rest of us will just, struggle through. And if you're Dan, you just decide to do something about it and fix it. So, what is this meant to do?
Yeah. So this is meant to make it very easy to get started and to stand up your own API. And the important thing here is that this is your API, right? So I'm not dictating anything about your endpoints. You can go as crazy as you want with whatever custom stuff you need to have. But in order to integrate with this is literally the entire app. Thanks to Net 6 minimal APIs, this is from web app builder to run the entire app.
Can you also bump up the fonts on this page, please?
Oh, didn't hold on.
There you go.
Okay. So this is the entire thing. It's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines of code.
Okay, so you're using the .NET generic builder, add mobile auth. What does that do? That's an extension method.
Yeah, so this is an extension, a custom extension method. This gives you all of the default kind of stuff where it goes through and it looks at the configuration file to see what settings are there, depending on how you've set it up. Out of the box, it handles Microsoft, Google, and Apple. Because those are the three most common. The good news is you can add as many others as you would like. Basically, anything that you can do with ASP.NET and OAuth authentication, like if you want GitHub or Amazon or Twitter, Facebook, whatever, you can add those if you want to. They just don't come out of the box, but it is very, very easy to set those up. There is an overload on that add mobile authentication that gives you access to the like OAuth builder, and so that way you can use all the extensions for add Facebook or add Twitter or whatever. So very, very easy to get going with Apple, or I'm sorry, with Apple, Google, and Microsoft. Like I said, those are handled out of the box. And so it's looking by default just at these, at this kind of scheme here, right? So it's going to look for something called OAuth in your configuration, and then it's going to look for a callback scheme, a key, and then configuration for Apple, Google, or Microsoft. If Apple, Google, or Microsoft are not if they're not configured, it just will ignore them. But if they are configured, it will go ahead and add them for you automatically. The other nice thing, just for kind of debugging and to get off, and running as quick as possible, the JWT key is not actually required. It does create a one for testing, basically, but in production, you would want to set that. And basically what that key does, just because I know that'll be a question, is it is used when encrypting the JWT that comes back. So yeah, so I mean, it's really, really easy to get going with. And then what this does, it actually it gives you a formatted response that's kind of like this right here. So we get that callback scheme, which we set in our configuration. That would be the same as what we have in our mobile app that, we saw with the web authenticator. And then it's going to give us that auth token, our expires in, and all that good stuff. So we have what we need to use. We don't have to go figure it out. We don't have to go look at the code. And that was actually one of the annoying things for me is looking at the docs, looking at the code. I actually did have to go to the code and see what the proper things were, because the sample in the Maui repo didn't work. Go figure. So this takes all the pain away for you.
Yeah. So do you have any like what am I supposed to name this file? Is there a convention, or just like drop it in as a configuration somewhere in your project?
Yeah. So let me do this.
And same fonts.
Oh, God damn it. I keep doing it. Let's see here. Where's the
it might be like the editor. You can actually do Control ++ on each.
Oh, that's why I'm hitting.
You're hitting Command. There you go.
Yes. I was like, isn't that what I'm doing? And then I'm realizing no, because I'm so used to the Mac one. I keep doing the key next to it. I feel like that's too big. So anyway, so this is just your app settings.
Okay, so app settings. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's nothing crazy. It's nothing that you aren't used to. You're just setting the all of these settings are all part of your app settings.json. If you're in the Azure portal, you've deployed it out there, you're just going to add them as configuration settings, the same as you would for any other app. So with Windows, it would be, like OAuth : Apple : service ID, or whatever the setting is that you're doing here.
I like your JWT key here.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so you drop this in as app settings.json, and then you the code that you showed where the service needs to be stood up, that's not in the .NET MAUI app. That's going to be your like service backend, right, for your APIs.
So like this demo API would be like an example of just
this is the API project that you're showing me. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and so like there's something that I didn't show, which is like there are a few different things. Like you can go map mobile auth route. You can have like a logout route. There's also a claims route, so which you can pass the whatever route that you want for it, or you can just do like the defaults and get all of those at once. And so like if you wanted to have an endpoint that you just say, hey, give me a JSON object representing this user, right? Like that tells me who this user is. You can do that, and it's going to deconstruct the claims for you. It's something you could do on the client side. I know a lot of people don't like to do that. So there is that API endpoint that you could do, and you can add whatever custom stuff you want in there, for yourself. There are other, extensibility endpoints that, I don't really, we could do like a very deep dive, which I don't think we want to do today. I would just really kind of encourage people, go check out the repo. But, there is an ability to kind of customize things a little bit. Like you see, it's custom claims handler. So as it's going through and it's, authentic, or it's creating that authentication token, you do have a hook here that you could actually inject claims into that JWT if you wanted to, into that user session. So there's a lot of different things that you can kind of do here. This one, is a little bit more kind of built out just because, I'm trying to show more what you can do. Like we have Swagger here, so you can see the endpoints easier when you run this. Here's like the builder I was talking about. So, if you added the library for Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, GitHub, whatever, you can just, go builder.add Facebook and, do the settings for Facebook or Twitter or whatever. And you'll get those lighting up in here as well. But this is all your API. So you can add all of your own routes, so like if I want to come in here and I want to say app dot, I think it was a map get or something like that. And we'll say, demo API, right? And, we have some sort of delegate, we do some stuff, right? And then, requires, I think it's authorization or something like that. This is VS Code. So I'm probably not, I think that's wrong. But, it's something like, requires authentication or something like that is the, you get it in Visual Studio. But this is really all it takes to now have my own endpoint, and, it's authenticated. Someone can't just hit this willy-nilly. So I know who that user is when they hit this. But I didn't have to do any of the crazy authentication stuff. That's already taken care of for me. So,
yeah. No, this is nice. And now going back to something you said, like with Apple in particular, where you have to, have that callback scheme and the URL. Do you have to have this API stood up before you can do that with Apple?
Do I have to have the API? What do you mean?
Like, does this need to be a URL that Apple could call back into?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
For if you're using Apple authentication. So what I kind of, would do is, use Microsoft or Google for local testing. And then, for my stage, or, if I have like a semi-stable dev, this is one of those things where it kind of depends on how big is your team, right? So there are apps that I've worked on that, I'm wearing every single hat. I'm the project manager, I'm the mobile dev, I'm the back end dev, blah, blah. And Lord help them, somehow I'm also the designer. Oh, I feel sorry for them. But, so for things like that, you're going to be doing, very quick iteration, because, you might literally be running the back end locally and running the mobile app locally at the same time. In a lot of other cases, you might have another developer or a whole nother team that's responsible for this. So, it becomes a little bit different, where they're probably testing this, with other means, other than the mobile app. They might be using, what do you call, why am I brain farting now? I'll think of it, and I can see the app logo, and now I just can't think of the name of it. But you might use some tool basically for hitting the API. That's going to bug me that I can't remember that.
You mean like ngrok or something like that?
Not ngrok, Postman.
That's Postman. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a big
Postman. I like Postman.
No, nothing wrong with it, but also Fiddler will do the same things for you.
I never got into Fiddler for API testing. Like, I use
Maybe you
I
should. I'll show you
yeah,
some more things someday. But a lot of work has gone into, especially the API side of things, and
really.
replicating or like faking out, hitting an endpoint, and recording your responses and just playing it back from
Yeah.
Fiddler without having the need to stand up a server.
Yeah. I always used it more for like, I couldn't really control either the API and I needed to kind of man in the middle attack myself.
Yeah, yeah.
um, but yeah, that's a whole nother conversation for another day.
Amen.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so on I was going to ask, like, on
mhm,
your API side,
mhm.
like the stuff that you have with the mobile auth, is that a NuGet package that I can include, or
It sure is. Yeah.
okay,
Yep. It is up on NuGet. I think if you just type mobile auth on NuGet, let's see, it should come right up. We'll do that. I'll bump this up just because. Say mobile auth. Oh,
there it
if you
is.
don't put a space in it, you'll find it right at the top. So yeah, you just, if you look for avantipoint.mobileauth, it's going to be right there. So this is the latest version. I am actually about to do, maybe later today or tomorrow, I'll probably do a patch release that, just is for, just updates the packages for what was released this week. And then there's one other minor thing that I'm going to kind of feature that I'm going to add support for with the auth key for Apple. So let's actually talk about that for just a second. You may notice that it might be kind of hard to see, but in my demo API, I have a folder called app_data, and in there is an auth key from Apple. Okay. And so, that's all needed to be able to kind of create all the custom signing that you need in order to authenticate with the Apple API and everything. So, you do need to have that available when you deploy in that folder, which gets kind of irritating if you're like me. So, and that's kind of how they show you to do it. And so what I ended up doing was I added a setting, and let's just go find it.
If you're putting this up in like Azure or something, you could put it in like secrets, or is it a file essentially?
Yeah, so there's two ways around this, which I've added support for. One is you can just basically specify the private key, that P8. And right now it takes the file kind of as is, multi-line, which, to be honest, I haven't tested it out there. And so what I wanted to actually do is let you just base 64 encode it, because that base 64 encoding can be easier to work with as a variable than a multi-line string. So I'm going to add support for that. And then the other thing is there is this use Azure Key Vault. So you can drop that P8 in Azure Key Vault, and then have this pull the key from Azure Key Vault. Now the trick on that is I don't do anything at all with Azure Key Vault configuration. So if you want to use Azure Key Vault, you will need to go read the docs on how to set up your API to integrate with Azure Key Vault and have all the right permissions in order to pull the file out and do the authentication that you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But that is an option. Just toggle that, and instead of looking locally, it will look in Azure Key Vault. So,
Yeah, nicely done, nicely done. So once this is said and done, what does the app side of it, the client app side of it, look like?
Let's see if we can run it. Now I made some changes this morning that will not work. I realized that I lost a lot of changes, so I don't know if you saw recently. My Dell from Hell finally just decided to die. And
I may have missed some of the drama, but do tell. Real short. What happened?
I hate Dell. Do not buy a Dell. That's the that's the moral of the story is don't buy a Dell. But
I haven't in the last 10 years.
I have either had a technician come and fix it or sent it to Dell to repair 6 times since March or April.
Wow.
Okay. Realistically, they should be replacing it as a lemon, and they refuse.
Oh, I'm
which
sorry.
is just so fun. And what ended up happening was I unplugged my laptop. It powered off. When I powered it back on, it had erased the hard drive.
Whoa.
And so all of the work that had not been pushed to GitHub, which coincidentally was also for this library, and then I had a bunch of stuff for Prism and some other things. All of that just went out the window.
That's
yeah.
Sorry.
So I lost all of that, which was not great. But anyway, so here's kind of a little sample, like, hey, maybe I have my logo. I have, some sign-in buttons here. And if you actually look at the UI, you will notice that there is a sign-in with Apple. The sign-in with Apple is missing because it recognizes that we're not on an Apple device.
I see. That's nice.
So just, a little thing that you can kind of do there. So we'll go ahead and we'll sign in with Microsoft. Maybe. Okay. I did not please the demo gods this morning.
Plus you've been changing code.
I've been changing code too. Yeah. Okay. So in theory, that button works. It worked on SR1. Okay. SR2 broke it. See, does that one want to work? Okay. That one doesn't want to work. I did not make the necessary sacrifice to the demo gods.
Well, walk us through. What is it supposed to do?
So this would I'll have to go debug this now. So this should launch the web authenticator that we read about, and that will take us to our API, and then from our API we'll get either Microsoft or Google or Apple, whatever the authentication provider is. And after it is actually done and authenticated, it'll come back with that token and it'll display some information about us in the app here. So I'll have to get an update out later today that fixes whatever the heck broke.
So while you're talking about that, our good friend Aztec Consulting is in the chat room. Hey, and the mark of a good developer is a demo that goes haywire because of changes right before going live, or you make changes while you're doing the demo.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is I haven't run this since SR2 came out, and I've seen a few things break with SR2.
When did that come out, by the way?
Tuesday.
Yeah. So what Danny's referring to is service release. Is that what they're calling it? Like not a service pack, but essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
Post .NET MAUI hitting GA, we have had 3 releases or 2.
Well, you had the GA release, and then now we've had 2 service releases.
Yeah.
And the other fun thing, and I pinged the Maui team on this morning to say, like, hey, what the heck? There are a whole bunch of issues, and some of them are quite significant, that were assigned to SR2 that were supposed to be included in SR2 and were never done. And apparently, from what I understand, they're going into like code freeze for SR3 like this week. So I'm like, are you serious right now? What's going on with all these bugs?
And engineering is expensive. Do you need to address the puppy?
He likes to bark.
It's like, you're not caring for me. It's like 40 minutes in.
You know what the problem is? Is I have a coyote that's living in the neighbor's yard, and
Okay, that's not something you hear every day, but okay.
it's a problem because technically under state law, they're considered a nuisance and you can shoot them. But in the city, there are laws that say that you cannot discharge a firearm, period. And and so they won't let the neighbor shoot the damn thing. And animal control won't.
The dogs.
And animal control won't come out and capture it. And so everybody is like, well, what do I do? Right. So like I've got neighbors that are mad that the dog is barking, and goes crazy. And I'm like, well, do something about the coyote, and they can't do anything about the coyote. So it's
Aztec has a solution, like use bows and arrows. You might not be able to discharge a weapon that's has anything to do with bullets, but hey, arrows might work.
I'm not very good with the bow and arrow. I've tried that in the past, not to go for the coyote, but I've tried a bow and arrow in the past, and I didn't have the best of luck with it. So I'm just being honest. I know my limitations. Yeah.
Okay, so walk us through a little bit of code, like in your Maui app. Like, what exactly is the code that happens when you hit that button, sign in with Microsoft? What is it doing?
Yeah, so let's take a look here real quick. So actually, we probably want to add singleton Apple. Okay, so there are a few things that it should be doing.
Actually, before you move into this, can I ask you a general question? Because knowing how anal you are about good design architecture, I heard some feedback on the whole dependency injection thing in .NET MAUI is nice. Now you can just register all the things right here.
Yep.
But I think it was I'm drawing a blank. Who maintains Shiny?
Alan Ritchie. Yeah.
So Alan was saying like maybe just a singleton everywhere is not the best pattern to initiate developers into. Do you have any thoughts on this? Like, why is everything a singleton?
Because they don't understand dependency injection to begin with.
Oh boy. Okay. We're not going to go anymore.
I mean, I love James Bonamagno. He's a great guy. But I did get a very good laugh at a video he released recently where he tried to say, I've been doing this and recommending this for years and interfaces. And I'm like, no, you haven't. But
we're not doing
we'll go away from that.
Yes.
If you look at Prism, you'll actually notice that there is a lot of scoping in Prism, and they do have some scoping actually in Maui. Good grief, that dog is going to drive me nuts. So they do have some scoping, you just don't see it. The scoping is around the window in Maui itself. In Prism, we do it around the page. So every single page has its own scope, which means that you'll get services that last within the lifetime of that page. And it gets really kind of crazy with Prism because what people are used to is when you see, the MVVM pattern, in most Xamarin Forms or Maui applications, it's around the page, and then the page has a view model. And, that kind of goes to like with Fresh MVVM, they have this page model philosophy, right? And they kind of confuse the terminology a little bit. But with Prism, we say anything that is a view, anything that's a visual element can have a view model. So, you have page navigation, and that page can have a view model, but you also have region navigation where any view literally can have its own view model. We have the dialogue service where, well, actually the dialogue service is going to come not into the release that I put out yesterday, but will be in the next release. And with that, now you have dialogues that have a view model. So, it gets a little bit more confused, but with Prism, like I said, we have that scope that's around the page. So now you have a service that could be created and shared across your regions and the page. And so each one is going to kind of have a singleton scope within that one page, but you'll have, different instances across multiple pages.
So a little bit more granular.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, so you're bringing in the web authenticator, Apple sign-on authenticator.
Yep.
All right.
And then we're bringing in secure storage. I will be honest. This is nice because it works on all the platforms, and Alan does not like Windows. But I really love the implementation that Shiny has around secure storage, because literally, all I have to do is I just say, public class, my settings, settings, and then I give it, some, like I could say, reactive object, for instance, because I do like reactive UI as well. Or I could do bindable base from Prism. Really anything that implements iNotify property change. It does whatever classes that you want to use is fine. As long as it implements iNotify property changed. And then, it's basically, I have like, JWT, and I'm going to keep it simple, but, let's just say I'm using FODI, right? And so I could say like, property changed. And so, that could be my class where I have, well, I wouldn't work with, if I'm using reactive object, I guess I should probably do that, right? So, so this could basically be my class where I say, I have my settings, I inherit from reactive object, I have this reactive property that's JWT, and then the FODI Weaver will actually go in and give me my backing field and do all of the stuff to implement the iNotify property changes around that. And then all I have to do is register my settings. And, there's like one other thing. I think it's like storage object or something like that. And then like you just say like secure. So there's some attribute, right? And so it's like, now that's my entire thing. And my secure storage is done. Now all I have to do is just resolve my settings and, get or set the JWT, and I know it's being handled securely. I love Alan's implementation.
It is nice, and just overall, like the abstraction around secure storage is nice. Like even in Essentials or Microsoft or Xamarin Essentials. It's the encryption that you don't need to go into, especially like speaking of Apple, like that goes into your what's the key? It's called
the keychain.
Keychain. You don't want to mess with that. That just let it be. Just let the implementation do its thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you like a little bit of a teaser. So, not that we're going to talk about it today, but, I've also been doing some build stuff with Maui, and for some of that, it required working with the keychain, and I nuked by accident the keychain on my Mac like 4 times.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I don't want to do that.
I literally, like, you know how you get the autofill when you go to websites in your browser? Yeah, that doesn't work on my Mac anymore.
You're messing with some very core Apple services that are shared across iOS, Mac, and so on. So you got to be careful what you're doing.
Yeah. So it's some fun stuff there. I just realized it was on the wrong camera. Anyway, so so we just have this real basic setup. I do have a custom extension here. You see like this add refit client. So this is actually kind of a fun one. So I have this profile service that uses Refit, and I love Refit for working with APIs. So all I have to do is just say, I have authorization as bearer, the endpoint is, profile, and I want to get basically a dictionary of the claims, right? So this is going to say, here's the key, here's the value, right? And that's all it is. And it wraps it in this API response, which is very nice. So if I have some sort of error, like I'm not authenticated, there's a server error, whatever, I can still check that HTTP status before getting the dictionary. So I don't have to deal with, throwing an exception because it wasn't able to serialize. So that's rather useful.
Good stuff.
And then here's kind of the extension down here. So you can see, it's just on iService collection. I'm just going to add a singleton. And so we have the refit settings where we say, here's the authorization header value getter. It's a mouthful. And then all it does is it uses the service provider to get iSecure storage, which we registered up above. And then it's going to get the access token from secure storage. So when we log in, we'll set it, and then this is able to get it. And then it passes obviously the settings into the REST service, and we give it the base URL. So real simple way to kind of interact with our API, and it didn't take much. Production I would use, or a real app I should say, I would use mobile build tools to inject the base URL, but it'd be something like that.
Sweet. Yeah. Very simple on the client side.
Yeah, super simple. I think our main page here, what do we do? So when we log in, we do the authentication, set the access token, and then we await the response from that service to get the profile claims, and then it does the whole update and sets the claims for us on the UI.
Nice. Yeah, I'm going to highlight the URL one more time here. So that's the GitHub repo, and then Dan's got the NuGet package out. So if you're doing authentication, take a look at this.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And this was just about authentication. I know you want to, you're doing more stuff with DevOps, which we'll get you back another time to talk about DevOps. But this is good.
Yeah,
very good stuff, sir. Dan
Siegel, I hope it helps some people out.
Dan Siegel does make good libraries. I vouch for that. All right,
I appreciate you.
Yeah, I think the other camera of yours is it freezes less. This one froze again, but you're fine. We can hear you just fine. But thank you. Thanks for taking the time out to come and show us all this stuff. And again, first up, taking the time to do this in the first place to help out other fellow developers. So we appreciate you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone in the chat room, we appreciate you as well. There you go, Aztec, and everyone else watching this later. We love you all. So keep being productive. And Dan the man, there you go. Yeah, Dan the man. So Dan does a lot of stuff from Prism to all of the mobile dev tools and mobile auth and now DevOps. He's got his hands into a lot of different things.
I do. I do.
Yeah.
That's why when people say, "So, what do you do?" I just write code, man.
I do
a lot of it.
I do stuff, and unless I'm writing on a Dell, I save my stuff as well.
I lost all my auth keys. It's so bad.
All right, folks. That's it from us, and bye-bye.